What makes a cinematic shot? To be honest with you guys, it's more than you think. Composition, angles, lighting, lens choice, color scheme. If we take a second and we look at some of your favorite films, and take that even a step further and look at some of your favorite cinematographers, they all have mastered the art of visual storytelling. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow to take a look at their work and compare your work. The disparity sometimes can seem miles away, but there's a very important technique that you guys can use to understand and break down their frames so you can get better and start shooting like a cinematographer. Story is king. And I know you guys have heard me say this a million times on this channel, and I'm going to keep saying it because one of the most important aspects of being a good storyteller or a filmmaker or even a cinematographer is the ability to take a script and be able to look at it and say, okay, visually, this is what I'm trying to say. And when you do that, what's going to happen is that you're going to have a reasoning behind the lighting, the angle, the composition, and even the color scheme, and have reasoning behind every decision you make as a cinematographer or a filmmaker. Let's take a second and take a look at a few shots from The Bear. The Bear is incredibly intentional with the lighting, texture, and the colors that they decide to use that all come together and help tell the story. When the character's in the restaurant, the goal of the cinematographer and the director was to give you this really natural looking kitchen that you would see in your average hole-in-the-wall restaurant. Right off the bat, you can notice that they've placed practicals all over the kitchen, and they're using a mix of yellow and green tinted lighting. And this particular color combination tends to make a scene feel a little bit dirty and a little bit gritty. And they've motivated these lights underneath the cabinets as well as this practical light right up here. And then of course you have the kitchen stove lights that almost match this color and tone. Now our main key light is definitely a top-down light coming from above. And you can tell this because there are shadows below the shelves. And if you notice on our character, there's a bit of shine on his forehead, which indicates that there's light hitting him, as well as a little bit of shadow underneath this arm of his sleeve. And in our mind, we believe that it's all coming from these fluorescent ceiling lights, because if we cut to this shot right over here, you can see the light is all motivated by the fluorescent light right up here. And of course you have this warm top light, which is motivating all the light above the stove. Their goal was to make this particular scene look gritty, dingy, and like a rundown kitchen. But then they show you these other kitchens that he's worked in that were extremely prestigious, and then if you take a look at the lighting, very intentionally, it's completely different. Everything is all white and pristine and clean, and you notice that there's almost no shadow or contrast anywhere. And as a viewer, you can obviously tell that the restaurant is a lot more organized. Just by lighting alone, everything is more balanced, giving you a more uniform and well-managed look and feel to the shot. Now, when you're in the process of lighting a scene, you have to consider where to add and where to subtract light. Even the simplest scenes could have a ton of lights to create the atmosphere that we're actually seeing in a film. And one particular lighting technique that is used over and over again in Hollywood is something called backlighting. And everybody associates the cinematic look with backlighting. And all this is placing your character or your subject between the camera and the light source. Taking a look at this scene from Saltburn, our main character is sitting by the window with what looks like a bunch of sunlight outlining him in the frame. And of course, in our mind, we're looking at this and we're saying, yeah, that's obviously sunlight. What's actually happening is that they're using a hard light source and shooting it right through this window. The other thing that you could obviously see is the fact that they're using a ton of haze in the room to give it this soft, diffused look. But of course, the lighting isn't the only thing giving it its cinematic look. Also, the angle at which the camera is placed is something you have to take into account. Number one, that low angle gave our character power, while the push-in actually made you pay attention and draw the audience in to this shot. And of course, let's not forget about the deep red curtains on the side of our character, giving us symmetry and leading lines, while also the color red is sort of suggesting a sex appeal, which is exactly what they wanted from this character in the scene. And if you're just watching this scene and you're not paying attention to all of these things, you're internally feeling this, but when you really start to break it down, you understand that everything that they're doing is extremely intentional. From the lighting, composition, colors, and movement, all of this brought this together to create this very cinematic look. But if we're taking a second and we're discussing lighting and color, you have to take a look at John Wick. This film is a masterclass on how to use color and saturation to build intrigue for their film. Taking a look at this scene right here, it really pops and grabs your attention for many reasons. First and foremost, the scene itself is very saturated and it's utilizing blue and orange. And this color combination is called complementary colors. And if you guys want a full breakdown on colors and what they mean in your film, check out this link right up here. I break down everything you need to know about colors in film. But pretty much complementary colors lie opposite of each other on the color wheel, giving you a pleasing color contrast. The other thing that we can quickly understand from the scene is the fact that the color in the background is resembling moonlight. And because we see these candles in the background, we believe as viewers that this lighting on our character's face is all coming from that candlelight. But of course, that's definitely not the case, because there's got to be some sort of warm, soft tungsten light probably bouncing in this direction. And you can tell this because the shadow roll off is very gradual. There's no harsh shadows casted from her nose. Another thing that's extremely intentional in this scene is the cool rim light that's around her shoulders and the back of her neck. My guess is that they filled the room with a ton of haze, and because you could see these sort of light rays, there's obviously some hard light passing through the windows and piercing through the haze. And then to achieve this soft rim light around our character, they definitely shot some light from this direction, making you feel like the light on her is all coming from the moonlight through the window. As viewers, our mind believes all of this because we have warm light motivated by the candles. It seems like it's nighttime out, so of course, we're gonna go ahead and assume that all of that blue light is coming from a moonlight, and it feels like they're in some sort of church, so all of this in our mind starts to make sense. Now, a great way to learn about different color schemes, shot sizes, and even camera movement is a website called Film Vibes. It's a company that me and my partner started, and I'm extremely excited for it because it is so helpful for filmmakers to use for treatments, shot lists, storyboards, and even just a way to go on there and look for inspiration for your next film project. And what sets this website apart from other websites like ShotDeck and FrameSet is the ability to drag an in and an out point from any clip and download an MP4, a GIF, or a PNG file, giving you the ability to add camera movement to your pitch decks, storyboards, and treatments. But one thing that we've found a lot of people say when they visit our site is how inspirational Film Vibes is to get ideas for your next film project. And because it has extremely intuitive filters, it's also a great way to use as an educational tool to help you understand a little bit more about filmmaking and cinematography. And if you guys want to support this company that me and my partner started up, we're able to give you guys a 20% discount code down below. And even if you guys just want to go on there and check it out and just kind of learn about filmmaking and just get an inspiration for your next film project, you're able to actually do all of this stuff for free right now. So definitely, I at least encourage you guys to go check it out. I'll leave a link right down below. Now, we spoke a lot about adding lights to your scene, but one very important element is the way you control or subtract light in your scene. There are many situations where cinematographers have to use something called negative fill to control the light in their scene. And all this is a black piece of fabric that blocks or subtracts light in the frame. And a hard tell for this is when they shoot close-ups. And that's because close-ups are extremely controllable, because you could bring anything that you want very close to the frame and get it extremely dialed in. Taking a look at this daylight exterior shot, you can tell that it's somewhat of an overcast day by the sky, and then you could also see that there's a gradual roll off in the shadows on this side of his face, as well as a catch light on the upper right hand corner of his eyeball, letting you know that the light is obviously coming from this direction right over here. And because the light is soft, you can tell that they brought in some very intentional negative fill over here on this side of his face. And then they shot a bit of rim light just touching this side of his face over here. This technique is so important when it comes to shaping the light in your frame, and sometimes you don't even have to worry about adding light. Sometimes subtracting light is a better way to go. And we talked a lot about adding or subtracting lights that are not in the frame, but there's something very important that we got to talk about, and that is practical lights. Let's quickly take a second and dive just a little bit deeper into what practical lights are and how you guys can use them to tell your story. Practical lights are any lights that are in your frame. Things like lamps, signs, street lights, and anything that feels like it might resemble the real world. And while they can be used to add some creative flair to your frame, they also can be used to help you light your scene. Like in this frame from Poor Things. You can tell that there's a good amount of top-down lighting, but the rest of the light in the scene is really all lit by these practicals. And that's what practical lights are for, giving a sense of motivation for the lights around you. And let's come back to the beginning. The most important thing is what? Intention. When you're lighting a scene, you need to have intention and a reason for doing things. Having practicals and motivated light definitely gives you some form of intention when you are thinking about placing fixtures in your scene. And if you guys want to learn more about cinematography and filmmaking in general, me and my team are putting together a course, and if you guys want to sign up, I'll leave a link down below or right up here. As soon as we drop the course, you'll be notified, and yeah man, very excited for that thing. So I want to thank you guys so much for stopping in and hanging out. My name is Zarfati. I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.